Well, I'm sure we'll get into it when we talk about Kirby. But
yes, exactly. That's why I'm afraid to even go down that one a little too much.
I know. And yeah, we've already had like 2 episodes worth of chat here, so we probably should get into some actual.
That's right.
Oh, and
gold, Jerry.
Yeah, a little Banya for you. God, what a great character. It's the best, Jerry. The best. Oh man. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with Randall Nolery.
Hey, folks.
And it's been a while since we've done one just the 2 of us, Randall. Twofer. But you're stuck with just the both of us. We actually, originally tonight, we were planning on having the whole crew, like DJ included. It's been probably at least a year since DJ's been on the podcast, at least. Like, I feel like it was like around when COVID started, it was kind of like, it became too tough to coordinate with DJ and he's lazy and whatever. But he was going to be on here. We were talking Elden Ring that Randall talked it recently. And it was like, he was like, you're talking that, and John's been digging in. But John, after DJ backed out, John also had to back out. So we were like, oh, shoot, well, we don't want to talk about Kirby until John's here. And Randall is still playing Elden Ring, I'm sure, but don't want to dig more into that until we can like bounce some ideas off with John. So we were like, man, we had like a whole kind of docket between those 2 games ready to talk about. And I was kind of like, I've had kind of like a lazy week. I've been doing not lazy week. I've been doing a bunch of like working out and trying to get my like physical routine back in shape with my like recovery from this pain. Like I keep doing the pain management stuff, and then I'm like, I'm feeling a little better. And then I start applying for jobs again and stop working out as much. And then I just fall off the track, and it's just so hard to stay on top of that. So I've been really focusing on that this week. And then in turn,
that's good.
Haven't had the energy or like the mental capacity to play games a ton other than when I was like chipping away at Kirby. But in the last few days, I did start kind of getting back at it. I was just like getting the itch to like do some streams. And I've got a few games here, Randall, that I think really kind of are all up your alley. So I'm curious if so I'll probably save some of them for a future, save it for the cast episode. But the ones that we'll dig into now, like I've been playing a few kind of puzzly card-based roguelike. Maybe they're not traditional roguelikes per se, but there's like a random element. So I've been playing a game called, like I talked about Shotgun King, so I probably won't dig into that. I talked about that on a podcast recently, an episode of Save It for the Cast, which is like a roguelike take on chess that came out for the Ludum Dare 50 game jam, and from our pals at Punk Cake, who just keep cranking out awesome games. And they just released like a final version of it today that they've been polishing up for the last like few weeks and whatnot. But it's like you're playing as one king with a shotgun against an entire army of the other opponent. And basically, I'm just really, I talked about it on the last week's Save It for the Cast. Like I'm just really excited to see like what they have added into the mix, like what new buffs are going to be added. But in turn, after I started playing that, I kind of was like, well, I know they're like releasing a final version of this, so I don't want to like keep playing this Ludum Dare Jam version of the game. So I ended up jumping over to a game called Stacklands, which I know I said I was going to give you the option, but I guess I'm just going to tell you what games I'm going to talk about here. But I think this one's up your alley. So I've been playing this game called Stacklands, which is from Sock Pop, who I've also talked about on the podcast before. I think also in a Save It for the Cast episode, but they also do the Punk Cake thing. They've been doing it for far longer than Punk Cake's been doing it, where they crank out a game every month, and they have a pretty big team. It's just nuts how these teams
understand. Do this. Big team or not, I don't understand the schedule.
It's insanity.
It's crazy.
It's insanity. And again, I think they do a similar thing to kind of how Punk Cake does. And again, they have a slightly bigger team, but I think they kind of just rotate. Okay, this is like the designer on this game, and like everybody pitches in, but like here's the lead designer on this particular game. But I know that like on both, it's funny enough, both Shotgun King and Stacklands have had like really strong receptions where like, I know Punk Cake was saying like, man, we've got tons of new Discord members and tons of new Patreon subscribers and stuff ever since this game like took off through the game jam. And I think Sock Pop, I was just reading an announcement about Stacklands saying like, man, the reception for this game has been so strong. We're actually planning on, even though we usually do the game a month thing, like the reception's been so strong that like we're planning on actually like doubling the capacity, like adding a bunch of new stuff into this game, changing it up and potentially doubling the price of it, because all their games are only $5, which is nuts. And this is like, basically like a deck building like card game that's really heavily focused on crafting and basically like kind of similar. The game that I talked about from them a little bit more in depth on Save It for the Cast is a game called Apocalypse, and it's kind of similar to that, where it's like you basically have this like big table, and on in Apocalypse you can see like the entire map at once. But in this game, you're playing like, you know, card table board or whatever, and then basically you get like a pack of cards to start each run, and you get like a villager and a berry or something, and soil and a tree or something, and then basically you can like stack different combinations of cards. So for example, a simple combination, if you put a berry in the soil right above that stack of cards, there'll be like a timer that starts filling up. And the game kind of takes place in like real time. And like at the end of each day, you basically just have to have enough food to feed all your villagers. And then as long as they're fed, or if they don't get fed, they die and they turn into a corpse card. So like everything is like very layered. So like, for example, I kind of got sidetracked or started like explaining two things at once, but like, if you put a villager on top of a tree, you chop the tree into wood. If you put the villager on top of wood, it chops it into a stick. Okay. Or if you combine 3 wood cards and 2 stone cards together, you build a lumber yard. Ooh. If you combine, and like, so one of the ways, now. Exactly. And like, so one of the ways, like, I'm not the biggest fan of crafting always, but when you can kind of like, this game's letting you like play around a little bit like you can in like Breath of the Wild when you're cooking, and just like, let me try this and see what happens. Like you can start to get intuitive, but you can also like, so any card that you make, you can sell for a certain amount. So for example, like a wood might only be worth 1 coin, but if you chop that wood into a stick, that's worth 2 coins. And then like a lumber yard, you know, you can sell anything pretty much except your corpse cards. And then you have a limit to how many cards you can have on the play field at any given time, which I think you can level up over time, but like at any moment, at least at the start of a run, you can have 20 cards on the play field. So like, and like, for example, like 2 berries is roughly what it takes to feed a person. But you can also like, sometimes you'll open a pack of cards and there'll be an enemy inside the cards, and there'll be like a little goblin that you have to kill, and you can, then it like takes down your health a little bit. But you can like build a house and you can go sleep. I can't remember how you.
So you say open a pack of cards. Are we talking like what's essentially like a booster pack as opposed to like a preset deck of cards?
It is precisely a booster pack. So like you're basically any cards that you're not using or not turning into craft. So you kind of have to manage your like juggling between like, okay, I need these berry cards or whatever, you know, there's apples, it's not just berries, but there's raw meat, or like if you kill an enemy, a rabbit or whatever, it turns into raw meat. And then you can, if you have a campfire, you can cook it on the campfire, and then it's worth more points or whatever. But yeah, you're basically just opening up booster packs. And then so sometimes in those booster packs, you'll get like an idea card that'll actually give you a recipe for what you can craft. So that's how you like, and you keep like, it's a roguelite in that sense, where like everything I'm like unlocking is then now can be introduced in any run from the start. Yeah. And like each run, everything plays out in real time, but you can also kind of like, I don't know if it fully pauses time. It might be like that's like super hot effect where it like technically is like inching along, but you can pause and like still move things around. And then like, for example, so like if 2 of your villagers die, you can actually combine those 2 villagers and like turn it into a graveyard. And then like you can dig up the graveyard, but maybe you dig up another corpse, but maybe you dig up like bones and like other things you can use. And I've made it like today, like they call it moons in the game. Like moon is like a moon cycle is like a day cycle in the game. Sure. And I've made it like up to day 15 or moon 15, I would say, is about as far as I've gotten in a run. Okay. But like, yeah, there's like kind of like the starter pack is only costs 3 coins. That kind of, I think it's just called like New Beginnings or something. And then there's like the idea pack that might have the idea cards in it that are like 4 coins. And then the next booster pack costs 10 coins. Okay. So like, but again, those coins are also cards. So you really have to juggle how many cards do I have on the playing field. But then you could build a coin chest to put your coins into.
Oh, that then carries over runs?
Not overruns, but just so for the sake of like, I haven't had any runs where I've had like a shit ton of coins, but for example, if I had like 20 coins, that would be 20 cards, and I can only have X amount of cards in a run. And then you have to discard the, you know, however many you have over the limit at the end of a moon cycle or whatever. Right. So yeah, you just kind of have to manage like how many coins are on the playing field. So it would just be to kind of store them to use for later.
Makes sense.
But Yeah, I really like you can build like I forget what it was called, but like a militia camp or something. So then I could put the villager on top of that card and like turn it in. Then that villager now becomes like a slightly more like when you go into battle with an enemy or something, they're slightly more adept.
Right.
And it seems like, again, there's still so much more I can do in this game.
Oh my God.
But like every run has felt so fresh and so different. And it's just got like Sock Pop pretty much kills this every time from the games of theirs I've played. Just like such a great, like kind of minimalist aesthetic with like a really chill, great, like vibey soundtrack and great sound effects. Like really like my only gripe with the game probably is that you can't turn the sound effects down a little bit. They're really, really loud.
Like a common gripe from us. Yes.
Yeah, I'm always bitching about that, I feel. But like I love like when you grab like the villager card, like it's just like whoop, whoop. Like you hear like a little guy go like make a noise. And then even like you can procreate. You can, if you put 2 villagers on the house, and like you might have to add one more thing, but like again, you can just like you can create more villagers where otherwise you're just kind of hoping they pop out in a booster pack. So,
right.
Which is very, again, you might get enemies in a booster pack. So like really anything can happen. But man, I've been sucked into this game.
Oh, it sounds incredible.
Yeah, it's been great. And again, it's only $5 at the moment. And I kind of pulled myself away from it as well, because when I read that announcement that they said that they were planning on it's going to really add a bunch of stuff to the game and possibly even change up some of the strategies based on some of the new stuff that's going to be added. So I was like, man, this is another one that like I could totally just get hooked in right now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Part of me wants to, just like I was like kind of getting pulled into Shotgun King, but I was like, I don't want to. I don't want to, like, I want to wait and see I don't want to play too much of it now to where I don't want to see what they change with like the final release or whatever. And I know I've done that in the past where like I played the demo a bunch and now like I played early access a bunch. Like even I did that a little bit with Dungeon Deathball. I've played it a few times since, but like when Matt first sent that over to us, I was still technically early access. It was pretty much done, but like he just added in that new feature of like, where you can like drink blood off the floor to like regain stamina and stuff like that. And I haven't played it at all since then. So it's like, man, I like overdid it before it was done.
Yep.
And I want to make sure I don't do that with these games. And actually another game real quick to fire off before we dig into some retro stuff that I've been playing and kind of had the same experience with is this game called Crown of Pain.
Okay.
And this is basically like an RPG meets Puzzle League. With the gameplay, but then like you know how like with Puzzle League you can swap where the tiles are at like horizontally
in like a two tile type
like you basically
of cursor.
Pick one tile and pick one right next to it and they swap places. So this game has the same mechanic as that, except you're playing with like completely with a mouse cursor like I love, just kicking back on the recliner. And in this case you actually can swap horizontally or vertically, so you can but it's still same mechanic. But so you start the game out with, you just have like one character in your party, and then that character you can assign to any one of the 4 like symbols or colors in the game. So there's like 4 different color tile pieces or whatever.
Okay.
And so like every time you get a combo of it's a match 3 puzzler essentially. So every time you get a match 3, that character will then do their attack or whatever. And you're kind of like, I don't think it's a roguelike. It feels like it is kind of like a scripted, like there's a map and you're working your way along the path. And I can't quite figure out how it works, because like sometimes I would die and it's like maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention to where I was on the map, but sometimes I'd die and I was like, oh, it felt like I went back like 3 levels. Did I go back to a checkpoint? And then sometimes I would die and like stay in the same spot. I wasn't 100, and it is still in early access. So it was another one that I was like, man, I don't want to play too much of this game because I really like what's going on. It's got this really vibey, like kind of like macabre soundtrack, and like kind of like it's not like it doesn't jump off your screen if you see it, like it's just kind of got this kind of like drab look, but in
I'm
action,
looking at the screenshots right now. Yeah,
it's just kind of like kind of muted tones and like just kind of like a dark.
I feel like it fits the theme of what you're describing, though. Oh,
definitely. And then so you start out with this one character, and it's cool up until you collect like whatever the currency is in the game, and you can upgrade your stats of each character. But once you get like. It took a few stages, and there's a little bit of grindiness where I was like, hopefully they can hammer out some of this in the early access, where it felt like I was just like, okay, I'm stuck here until I have enough money to unlock a second character. But once I unlocked a second and then a third character later, it gets really interesting and really strategic because the enemies definitely start getting pretty tough. Yeah. But at the same time, you're like, okay, you have more options. You're not just trying to match that one color or that one type of tile anymore. Yeah. And you really can kind of play like, okay, if I match this, it's going to line these up for later. Like it started getting more strategic than I thought it was going to be because like different enemies will have like their attacks will do different types of, like I was fighting these like spider enemies, so they would like stun my enemies or my characters for a couple turns. Like they'd be tangled in the webs, and you couldn't like do an attack or whatever. So it was just a really cool twist on like that puzzle. I you and I both are big fans of the Puzzle League series in general, whether it's Tetris Attack or
massive.
Yeah, like honestly, one of my favorite puzzle games, but this one or puzzle game series or whatever you want to call it. But
me too.
I liked that this one kind of took the pressure off, like the puzzle pieces aren't rising from the bottom of the screen. Like you're just able to play at your own pace, but it's a pretty wide grid. It's probably like, 12 or 15 tiles wide. Right. And maybe like 5 or 6, maybe 7 tiles tall.
Do you target specific enemies with attacks, or does it just kind of auto select that like an old school RPG?
It seemed like, so it kind of auto selects, but then there are like certain attacks where it was like, oh, if you do like this combo, or like if you do this, like match these 3 tiles and then this, like if you can have like kind of secondary attacks of like, oh, this is an uppercut, and the uppercut will always attack the enemy on like the bottom or in the front. So they're like for the most part, I was still able to kind of make my way through like just kind of making matches and getting lucky or not getting lucky. Like, but I didn't have to like hammer out every last move I was making, like where if I burned a turn, but it was noticeable where if it was like, oh man, I just like wasted 2 or 3 turns in a row, like I'm definitely going to die on this run and go back a couple stages. But once I got unlocked like the third character, it really was like, okay, pretty much every match I make, because again, each character is assigned to one of the 4 and you can switch them out as you see fit too. Right. Not that I don't really see what would give you an advantage to like pick one over the other. It's not like any one tile is more commonly seen. Right. But yeah, just a really cool take on like the Puzzle League formula. And I'm always like a pretty big sucker for anybody that's just like, here's a game you already like, here's a little interesting, clever twist on it.
And I mean, it's another example of indies doing what the major companies aren't willing to do, because it's not like Nintendo's released a new Puzzle League game in quite a while at this point.
Right. And I always feel like I don't want to diminish the game by just saying, oh, it's like Puzzle League with this, but that is what it
fine.
is. It's like
that's a perfectly good way to sell it to somebody like me.
Exactly. And it was another one that, like, again, like I played it during a stream and playing with the headphones on, like that, like, again, the music's like very minimal, but it really sets a really nice mood. Like I ended up playing for way longer than I anticipated or way longer than I even realized, because I was just kind of like, okay, I'll do this battle. And I was like, I'll get to this checkpoint. Okay, I'll get here. Okay, I'll try to get to this boss. And then I ended up like taking down that like little boss. It was more like a mini boss, but it had like definitely more waves than the previous stages. It's a really cool game. I'm really excited to see more, because there were definitely, right now there's only 4 characters that you can have in your party total, but there were 2 more that like that they looked like they were like the way they were like blocked off. It looked like these are not released yet because it's early access or whatever, but they will be. And it looked like they were going to probably have even more characters, and they all felt, even the 3 that I've unlocked already, the core characters feel pretty distinct. Like,
that's nice too. That's huge.
And you are leveling up like their health and their power stats and I don't think it's defense, but it's some kind of like focus or something that like it ups your chance for critical. It has something to do with your defense and your critical, but it's not just a typical defense stat. But either way, man, just a really cool layer. Like, because I know you and Tina used to play, was it Puzzle Hunters, or what was that game on DS? Like, that was kind of like it was like Bejeweled puzzle.
You're talking RPG? About Puzzle Quest.
Puzzle Quest, yes.
Yep, Puzzle Quest is real good, and that was more like, if I remember correctly, it's been a while at this point, but that's more like match 3, match 4 type of style, a little bit more Bejeweled-esque that way, but definitely had like those RPG and like attack elements, type of gameplay, like you're describing. But yeah, like, again, Nintendo won't release. I mean, they did re-release Panel de Pon, the like original Japanese version of Tetris Attack minus the Yoshi aesthetic. Like that got released on
Yeah.
the Japanese like Switch online Super Nintendo service. But otherwise, I think the last like new one we've got for anything in the Puzzle League series was Planet Puzzle League on DS. So anytime that I can get anything that's got, you know, vibes or similarities to that, I want it.
Yeah.
I love that gameplay. And especially, and yeah, like things like Puzzle Quest or what you're describing are like, you know, next level for that sort of stuff. And I love that. Like Crown of Pain, right? Yeah, that's that sort of stuff when you're adding like the RPG elements and a little bit more strategy onto a core gameplay that I already like. I'm going to be even more into that. That's sweet.
Yeah, and taking out that like frantic layer of like, because some of the puzzle games I've been playing lately are just like edge of your seat.
Yeah.
Like, and I as much as I love that, sometimes it's like I don't always want to be like. Sometimes I just want to play a puzzle game and chill out. You know?
Yeah, you got to be in the right mood.
Yeah.
For either one, for sure.
All right. Well, yeah, I could probably keep rambling about games that I've been playing, and I probably will give another maybe shout out or two on the back half of the episode here. But last time we got together and did a session at the end of the recording session, Randall was generous enough to let me hop on his family plan for the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass. I think we were talking about like syncing up for playing some Mario Kart 8 online with like the new tracks. Me, you, and John were like, we gotta sync up for that, and you were like, you were like, me and Tina just like added the family account because you had to do it for Animal Crossing or something.
Yeah,
to like each have your own island. So I was like, all right, well, if you're already paying for it, I don't mind being a mooch, I guess.
There's like literally like 8 slots available, and I've used 2, and I'm going to pay the same amount regardless in perpetuity. Like, why not just, here you go.
Yeah, so I had been putting that off, but, John talked about his experience with checking out some of the Nintendo 64 stuff recently, particularly Banjo-Kazooie, which obviously we all have played and have pretty fond feelings for that game, I feel. Yeah. But I know as soon as I was surprised, actually, it was like instantaneous. As soon as I sunk up the account, it was like immediately I could download the new Mario Kart stuff and download like whatever else, which I haven't had the chance to check out yet. I don't know if you have.
Yeah. Those Mario Kart tracks are good. Yeah.
Oh, you checked out some of them? Nice.
Yeah. Tina and I took a spin through all of those. There's like, I think it's like 8 new tracks, and some of them are from the mobile game Mario Kart Tour.
Oh.
Yeah. So they're like essentially new to me.
Like new, yeah.
I did mess around with Mario Kart Tour because the Nintendo, what is it called? Like My Nintendo or Nintendo Rewards or Platinum, whatever they're calling it these days. They were like pushing people towards that to like get some coins so you could get this MacGuffin pin or whatever it was. So I'm like, yeah, sure, it's free to play. Let me try it out on my phone. See how and it actually is. It's a pretty decent experience for being like a mobile game for someone that doesn't really play those. Did that like that was probably close to a year ago at this point that I did that, but I got a little bit of familiarity with Mario Kart Tour that way. But the courses that they brought over, I don't think are ones that I even played then. And they just feel like Mario Kart courses. Like they totally translate. And in fact, they're some of the better courses, I would argue, of this DLC pack. It's good. And I can't complain about getting 48 more courses across the release schedule.
It's nuts, yeah. Even if they're old games and or from the previous games, again with a few new-ish ones mixed in there, kind of. But and I saw even some people complaining about like, oh, they don't look as good as the tracks in the regular game. Get the hell out of here. And I see what they're saying. Like when you side by side, okay, the grass doesn't have as much texture. I honestly think it looks a little better with the kind of more flat, cartoony look of these newer ones. Like
you don't have time to be focused on that anyway when you're Mario Karting.
It doesn't affect your experience of playing Mario Kart
not at
whatsoever.
All.
So I was like, it was driving me nuts seeing that. I was like, I'm so glad I don't engage in this like discourse about this stuff. Obviously, we're literally talking about it right now, so I guess I'm engaging in that regard. But like. It's just like I can't imagine getting that upset about something like that.
No, I was very pleased with those first 8 courses. I think it's real good. Very much, and I just really like that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe package. Anyway, I think they've nailed it. So yes, just keep giving me more of it.
Yeah, I'm really happy they went that route with like just instead. I'd much rather have this. We might have even talked about this in the same way before, but like I'd much rather have this new like addition to the game that I already have and love than like have a whole new game that makes the other one obsolete. Like
I know
I would love to see that.
Like it was originally a Wii U game, and yeah, I did buy it on Wii U, and yeah, I bought all the DLC on Wii U, and then I rebought it on Switch. That's fine. It's not that big of a deal ultimately because Mario Kart 8 in particular is real good.
And you're like, if you play multiplayer at all, I mean, obviously I can't vouch for every person, but you're going to get your bang for your buck out of that game. Yeah. No way. Obviously I am with getting these free via you, all these free DLC courses or not free, but
no, the value proposition is really good anyway. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's totally sweet. I'm so excited that there's going to be so many more that are going to be dropping over the next however long it takes. Though they got those first courses out pretty quickly from the time of announcement.
So they're I didn't know they were planning on doing more.
Yeah, it's like they're dropping these like, so they announced 48 courses, but they just dropped 8 on the front side basically.
Oh, I
see.
And it's
going to happen in phases. So
okay, that's almost better. Like
get 8 at a time. Yeah,
give you a reason to let's go check them out. Let's pick it back up. It almost like keeps the game alive. Where like otherwise, I kind of haven't played Mario Kart 8 in a long time. Yeah, so it kind of like instead of just totally making that game obsolete with Mario Kart 9, just make me pop that game in again.
Yeah, it's just like its own platform basically.
Yeah, and you get that nostalgia trip of like if you've come up and played through the ages and played all the Mario Kart games. It is especially seeing like the ones that were in the more 2D worlds, or just or like even the N64 ones feel like so different.
I think if I remember correctly, like Choco Mountain from the N64 was one of them. Like, oh yeah, I played that one all the time when I was a kid. Like stuff like that. Like that's super cool.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that, and yeah, I haven't had a chance to dig into any of the Nintendo 64 stuff as far as like the retro stuff goes, but I did make sure to download that as well, along with the Sega Genesis download as well. And I did start poking around with the Sega, and I don't know, like for whatever reason, like I know, like when you turn on like the Super Nintendo or the Nintendo, you get the little like plink sound effect of when you like turn on the system or like first pop in a cartridge, but I noticed it and I registered it, but it's so much cooler when you boot up the Genesis and you get like the Sega, like even on just booting up the console, and then obviously you get it when you pick the game as well.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I kind of just was like firing it up. I did my usual like, I'll give Sonic another try. They got Sonic 2 on here. I'll give it a try. I played it for like 2 seconds. I was like, nope, hate this game.
Hate
Kevin, Sonic. Can't get down with the Sonic.
No,
I just don't like how they feel.
Be a Sonic bashing.
I'm not going to bash.
We're not going to fight about Sonic
they're just not for me. They're just not for me. But I did end up. So after like playing that for 2 seconds, and I fired up Super Fantasy Zone.
Yeah.
And I played. I didn't get very far. I actually just keep dying like constantly. The game is like oddly really hard right off the bat.
Is that the one that's like into the screen like Space Harrier? Is that one?
No, it's like side scrolling, but like I want to say the screen kind of like loops a little bit. Like you kind of like stop and like go into shops. Yeah. Like it kind of has more. It has a little bit of like a Parodius kind of look or colorful vibe to it.
Yeah, most of the traditional Fantasy Zone games are that way, where it's like the kind of endlessly loop scroll screen effect and very, very vibrant pastel-ish colors. Yeah,
and like really cartoony. Like everything looks almost like it's like drawn with crayons or something. Yeah. Although not unless like a Yoshi's Island where it has that like jagged or like kind of sloppiness to it. Like I don't know. It's got a cool style. It's not the most striking looking game or anything.
Well, it's kind of back to the like Master System lineage. It kind of has that sort of color scheme, and that's really where Fantasy Zone got big. Big in quotations, but like for that system, that was one of their bigger hits. And there was a few releases that happened on Master System and they all kind of have that same color scheme that really pops on Master System.
Yeah, like you don't see too many shmups where like the main ship is like a pink little like a little vehicle with wings on it or whatever.
It's a cute 'em up.
Exactly. So I was having a pretty good time playing that.
Yeah.
Although I keep getting to like literally the boss on the first stage and it just blows me away in like 2 seconds. But yeah, I like booted up Musha for a quick second, played a little bit of Ristar.
Yeah.
And I know like you're a bigger Sega guy than I am. And I know I was just like let it off like bashing on Sonic. But like I just never had a Sega growing up. So like I grew up with Mario, and by the time I got around to like playing the Sega games, I was like, man, these just don't really hold up to what I feel like a classic platformer, the my favorite platformers or whatever. So I'm kind of curious to like, I guess Ristar is like a little bit more of a lesser known, but it's still from Sonic Team. So it's like, I don't know, like, are there any particular games on like the Sega front that you being more of a Sega guy that you were like, oh, I'm pumped this is on here, or I can't wait for this to come, or anything that you've dug into so far on there?
Yeah. And there's actually, it sounds like there's rumors that, time of recording, we're kind of in like mid to late April here. So there's rumors that there's going to be more titles dropping imminently for Genesis, maybe like Earthworm Jim or Earthworm Jim 2, some of that sort of stuff. But just kind of going off of the list that we have now. And, when it comes to retro games, like I've never really gotten rid of any of my stuff. I have a pretty huge collection, and then I've mentioned it multiple times. I've been able to kind of just grab it over time, and it didn't cost me a fortune because I've just always thought those games were cool, even as they were, a couple or a few generations behind. I just kind of liked playing those games. They still had value, and in a indie game world, they gave experiences, especially 2D ones that weren't happening for a while, and that was kind of the impetus for a while. And
pick up and play too, because so many games were like really bogged down in like the PS2, PS3, like that era,
loading times and stuff.
Yeah, it was just like, man, I can just pop in this game and play it immediately.
Yeah,
like, it's just there's something about that.
There is, and I tend. All that being said, I tend to have a lens where, there's always nostalgia, right? I can even admit there's some, Sonic, the original Sonic, some of those games are not perfect games these days, but I still enjoy them from different perspectives. Some of it a little nostalgia, tinged, but most of the time the games I play, I'm picking up and putting in 2022 because I just want to play those games, and it's not necessarily just from nostalgia. It's because I feel that there's at least some elements of them, if not most elements, that hold up really well as their own experiences these days still. So when I know we even talked about this a little bit before, but like, a lot of retro game lists or best of lists will put a big factor on like the legacy of it, or like the impacts of certain games. And whereas like, I get it. And, in the historical perspective and that stuff is important, but for the games simply as games, if we're going to view, the same way we would music or movies, if I'm just popping in this piece of media to play it now and be entertained by it now,
right? Like
that's the viewpoint I have, not necessarily nostalgia or historical perspective.
Right, and funny enough, that's actually why I booted up Sonic, because I was like, oh, they actually put Sonic 2, so I was like, clearly they're not just like giving you the first one. It's like clearly they picked the one that like most people, or at least I know a lot of people are like, this is the good one, or this is the Sonic best one, or this is where it kind of came into its own, or whatever. So I was like, oh, it wasn't just slapped on here. Like they picked this one for a reason. So that was why I booted it up. Actually, it was like, because obviously I want to see how this holds up now, or maybe I just didn't play it at the right time or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Of the Genesis games, I still am most partial to Sonic 2, I would say. Although it seems like a lot of people are into Sonic 3 and Knuckles these days.
Yeah.
I like Sonic 2 the best, but of the Genesis games available on Switch Online, that I would still recommend people play and get really into. You mentioned Musha. Musha's phenomenal.
I didn't play enough of that either. I just played it for a quick second because I just know it's like a class. It's one of those like rare. It costs a fortune these days. Rare. So it's like, I know I'm never going to own this one in cartridge form, or not anytime soon.
Unless they happen to do the thing that's been happening a lot lately with these retro official re-releases, in which case I will jump over the moon with happiness that they managed to do that, and that I could buy it for $60 or whatever instead of 600 plus or whatever it's going for these days.
Especially if they do a nice job of reproducing those like Genesis like clamshell
and
cases.
They do.
Oh, okay.
And
they do.
do.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
They know
'Cause I
exactly what the collector sickos like me want.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, because I know we were talking about some of like the NES, Super Nintendo ones earlier, and I just, for whatever reason, I just kind of assumed that I'd made the assumption that they weren't doing Genesis ones, but that's awesome to hear.
No, they go the full 9 yards to like make sure it feels like you're buying a new Genesis game now.
That's awesome. That's
Yes,
awesome. And again, like we talked
everything.
about earlier too, it's like, okay, some of this money is actually going to the people that at least have the rights to the game.
Yeah.
Whether they're the people who made the game or not, I don't know, but they bought the rights somehow.
And it's manufactured professionally,
Yeah.
which you can't be sure of necessarily with just a regular reproduction. And to be fair, like I have some reproductions in my collection, but it just doesn't feel the same, and that's I guess that's easy
unwrapping
for
the
me to
shrink
say,
wrap
but
and all
yeah.
that stuff. Like, yeah, that's just a cool feeling. So yeah, Musha is one that I definitely need. Have you played much of it?
Yeah, I've played a lot of Musha. That was, I mean, even back in like the Wii Virtual Console days, I was like, oh my god, it's on here. Like I've always heard about this game, but I've never had access to it because I didn't do much with emulators back in those days.
Right.
And from that point on, I'm like, oh no, yeah, this lives up to the hype. It's a compile shooter. It's one of the better ones. Like I have some of the other games in that Aleste series or Aleste.
Oh yeah. We've talked about those.
We've talked about a few of those, and I've got like Robo Aleste on Sega CD amongst those other Game Gear ones, and things of that nature.
That's right. You brought that up back then too. I forgot that Musha's part of that series.
Yeah.
Or, part of a spin-off or part of that universe.
Yep, the Spriggan game on
Heck yeah.
TurboGrafx. Like all of those games are all very similar, top-down, pretty 2D vertical shmups primarily, and they're some of the best of the time period. And I think maybe they'd be viewed like a little simplistically now, but I think they just play so well. It's so straightforward. You just know what you're getting into. But there's still like a lot of different power-ups you can use, and it feels good. And when you die, it can be difficult, but it's like good difficult. It's not unfair difficult in my experience.
Yeah, and again with some of these more arcadey games, like having the save state features and stuff like that they have on the Switch Online services is like, or the emulators or whatever.
Yeah.
That's always nice to have, especially for games like that. Okay, I beat that stage with without dying. Okay, I'm going to save a spot there. I talk about it all the time, but I rarely actually use the feature for whatever reason.
No, I kind of, it's one of those things where like, I think I only reach for that feature when I feel like I have to. But that's okay, because it's available for you for that purpose if you want it or not. You don't have to use it, but it's there if you want it. So that's cool too.
Yeah.
You can, effectively clamshell, put that idle and like turn off your Switch. But then if you started another game, then you basically lose that progress. So it's nice to have the save state for an extra clamshell, and you get 4 of those or whatever. But
right.
Gunstar Heroes is on there. Gunstar Heroes is also phenomenal.
Yeah, that's one of the best games on Genesis, period. Yeah.
It is. I would even argue that might be one of the best 16-bit games of the generation.
Yeah, I would say that's fair.
It's real good, and that's a game we've beat together.
I was just gonna say, I definitely remember beating that one together, and definitely not one of our easiest feats.
No, it gets difficult. It definitely does, but it's the real like textbook definition of run and gun gameplay.
Yeah,
really frenetic, great production values. 2D scrolling run and gun, co-op, kind of as we've alluded to. Lots of like boss fights, lots of interesting locales. It scales. It's hard, but it scales pretty appropriately. It might take you a few go rounds to just kind of get a handle on the gameplay, but once you do, it's just kind of like in your bones. And and you can kind of grapple enemies and throw them at other enemies. So it's not just like hold the shoot button down. There's a lot you can combine different weapon types to make new weapon types, and that's really cool.
And like that jump and like dive that you can do that does damage, and like the slide you can do it. It really is like the movement is very strategic in a way. Like even though there are times where you're running to the right and just mowing down everything in sight, there definitely are times, and again, all the different like weapon combos you can get too from like picking up, like I think it was you pick like a starting weapon and then you pick up like a secondary weapon that you can either combine or you can like swap between the two. Yeah.
Yep. And then you can like pick up hearts along the way for your health from little like flying robot things that you either hit or you don't, a la Contra games.
Yeah.
You know, it's just it's very good.
Very good game. And again, adding the ability to be able to play online with people for the 2-player co-op, you know, being able to sync up, because there aren't a ton, especially during all this COVID stuff, you know, there aren't a ton of opportunities to get together with pals and play some games. So being able to fire this one up, you know, from anywhere in the world and play together is definitely cool. Yes. And you got to mention, I don't know if you were planning on mentioning Dynamite Heady, but you got to mention that as well. I was kind of surprised to see that on there, because like Gunstar Heroes, well, it's still like, both are from Treasure. Yep. But like it's Gunstar Heroes feels like it's a little bit more of like a Genesis classic. You know, you hear it all the time in the mix, but you don't necessarily, or I don't think of Dynamite Heady as being a Genesis classic in the you know, mainstream or whatever. So
no, it doesn't get added quite as quickly or as easily to those collections or whatever, you know. It's not like top of mind that way. So, but it's such a cool, quirky experience with its own. It has tons of personality.
Yeah, back to that production value on like Gunstar, almost like makes Gunstar Heroes look like child's play. Like not really. They both look amazing. But like there's so much cool, like all the way like Dynamite Heady's kind of like set up almost like you're like on a stage play or something. The whole game, like it's I don't know, just the way that whole game is put together in such a cool way, and it's a really cool, like interesting platforming mechanics too. Like it's kind of like a puzzle platformer, but with
throwing your head as an attack, and you can get different heads that do different stuff over time. And that game is hard as hell. Actually,
it is hard as hell. I've never made it very far, but that's one that actually, now that we're talking about the save states, like that's a game that it would definitely, for me at least, would benefit from having that.
As would Alien Soldier, the other Treasure hard as hell game.
Oh my God. I didn't realize that is, you know what? I saw it on there, but it's like kind of separate because it was, I think it's like an import title or something.
Because it never came out in the US for some stupid reason.
Yeah. So I remember I might have even picked that up on Virtual Console on Wii back in the day, but I barely ever played it. So you've played some of this one?
I have, but it's difficult. It's one of those, it is absolutely, probably more than any other game available on this Genesis list, a game that you need to like study in and of itself.
Memorize, yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know if you need to like memorize. It'd probably help to memorize it, but just like having a full in your bones, in your muscle memory comprehension of how the controls work is necessary to being successful at Alien Soldier. And it's just boss rush with your super cool looking, huge like bird robot character dude who just, you know, he just like causes chaos with all of his like attacks and stuff. It basically takes the boss battles from Gunstar Heroes and says like, okay, we're gonna make that just the whole game. Like, but even more like chaotic energy and difficulty.
Yeah, but with like like you were saying, like the massive sprites, like it really feels like a zoomed in like fighting game, looking style to it. But like but it's like kind of an action platformer. Yeah. Although, like you said, it is kind of like a boss. It's almost like a proto like Shadow of the Colossus in a way. You know, obviously you're not doing like exploring around the lands or whatever, but
just boss rush. And it's cool for what it is. And save states. No one will hate on you for using save states for something like that.
Yeah.
The other games, just like I'll throw out real quick that I've mentioned in passing before on this podcast that I love. Streets of Rage 2 obviously is
one of the best. Yeah.
Incredible beat 'em up. And I think like it might be a little bit simplistic these days compared to even like Streets of Rage 4, as I've talked about before, but the soundtrack is unbelievable. It has great presentation. It still feels great to play. It's just a great, like, fun beat 'em up to its core.
And it's maybe even worth mentioning, especially with that like Turtles collection coming out. Because I grew up on like Turtles in Time, and like it doesn't feel as immediately snappy as Turtles in Time. And I was somebody who would like go and say like Turtles in Time, best beat 'em up ever, no question. After playing Streets of Rage 2, I was kind of like, I don't know, like, but it didn't. Yeah. At first, I was kind of like, oh, this is old school retro. It has like a little bit of like a jank there's just like a little bit of slowness to the game that like when you very first pick it up, you're kind of like, oh, this feels like Final Fight or kind of sluggish or, you know, it just doesn't have that. It didn't immediately strike me as like this game's going to be amazing. And like pretty quickly, though, like you start getting, like you said, the music.
Oh, it's great.
And just it's one of the best beat 'em ups. It's maybe my favorite beat 'em up.
Yeah.
I love that game.
Yeah.
Skate's one of the best characters.
Oh, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Axel's my go-to.
And Blaze is great too. It's just a great trio. I like all three characters. We're usually in the beat 'em ups. It's like there's just kind of one character. Like even in Turtles in Time, it's like Donatello. What other choice is there? Come on.
Yep. No, it's wonderful. To this day, wonderful.
Yeah.
I could talk about all of these, but the only ones that I'll shout out otherwise are Shinobi 3 is not like the other Shinobi games necessarily. It is way more of like, it has kind of that like TMNT, like Turtles in Time, like energy and vibes to it almost like in an arcadey way. Like it other
almost looks more
Shinobi
like that.
games are like way more like plotting, whereas Shinobi 3 is just like,
it looks a little more. It looks a little more like that Ninja Warriors game or Ninja Saviors game that you talked about a long time ago, or even that. What's that Ninja Spirit on Turbo Graphics?
Yes.
Like it kind of looks like it's like Shinobi 3 looks a little bit more like that. I've dabbled in. I think I've played like a tiny bit of each of the Shinobis. I think I have those all on Genesis.
It plays a little bit more like those games too. I would say it's more like pushing you. Like those other games are good, but I really like Shinobi 3's even more actiony. Just keep pushing forward. You know, randomly you're now riding on a horse and it's now like a scrolling shooter section, or you're on a damn surfboard and like it just has all those like 90s things to it, but in a really good way, like an arcade game. It's fun.
Yeah, I was. It's funny you say like an arcade game, because I was just gonna say I felt like from the Shinobis that I played, it felt like Shinobi 3 was the first one that felt like, oh, this is like the arcade game, but a console version. Like it's a little more expansive. It's a little more. Because the first two games did feel a little more like kind of bare bones arcadey in that way, where it's just kind of, oh, here's a level. Yeah. Where, I don't know. Shinobi 3 just had like a little more going on. Maybe it was just more detail or more whatever, but it just like, oh, this is like taking that experience to the next level where it belongs.
Later era Genesis game. That's how it goes. And like the Konami games were too, Castlevania Bloodlines and Contra Hardcore, which if you're going to play Contra Hardcore, play the Japanese version. That's the only other thing I want to say. Like,
and
play
that's
the
cool
Japanese
that those are
version.
on there too. I wasn't expecting to see like some of those, like, because those are some of the more like rare sought after games as far as it comes to collecting. Because at least with Super Nintendo, I like had, you know, some of the games I had from growing up. With Genesis, when I got into collecting retro stuff, I was starting from scratch.
Yep.
So yeah, that was tough. It was nice to.
Those are not cheap games. Yeah.
Especially if you're like picky about wanting the box with it and stuff. And with I'm not picky about it with the Super Nintendo. Like anything that had a cardboard box, I can kind of just let it go. But knowing that there's like, I know there's more of the Genesis boxes floating around in the wild, so I got to get the real deal.
Yeah, one day I'll give Castlevania Bloodlines its full due and actually like sit down and be like, I'm going to play through this game.
Let me know when you do, because
that
would be a worthwhile. And I know John's a pretty big Castlevania fan, although more like the later entries. But that would be that one almost like bridges the gap. That would be a fun one to dig into, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, play Contra Hardcore, the Japanese version, because you get way more life bar for your gameplay. Like
interesting.
The
kind
US
of the opposite
version
of what
is
it
like
usually
one shot kill because they're afraid of kids renting it. And
the rentals. I was I was like the opposite of the usual, but then as soon as I came out of my mouth, I was like, yep, that's right. The rentals. They always had those extra hard versions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's too funny. But yeah, I'm excited. I kind of forgot about Castlevania and Contra, so I might have to dig into those, and I'm gonna have to download the Japanese versions.
Definitely do so.
Yeah, but we probably could wrap it up here. But I should give a quick shout out just because I've really enjoyed this game that I was playing earlier today. That's comes out in a couple days, so it'll probably be out by the time this episode comes out. But I was doing a stream of the demo for this game called Peglin. And I was explaining this to Randall, and again, I feel kind of bad like deducing games to just like it's this meets this, but it's pretty much Peggle meets a roguelike. So like Peggle or like Pachinko, and then you're
Peggle.
like basically you're like moving along the. And I'm saying I really enjoy the time I've played. I think I played Peggle 2 was the one I played the most.
It's a good one too.
And it's just like as much as I enjoyed it, it is kind of just, you're just kind of mindlessly playing it.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
just kind of like rack up a high score or whatever.
Of course.
Where,
but in a really good way.
Exactly. And Peglin is pretty much the same thing, but you're also like essentially like picture like the map that you see on like Slay the Spire or any other roguelike like that, where you have like your kind of path and then you have a few branching paths where, okay, that now you can pick to go to this question mark or this enemy. And basically you're just kind of like going down the pachinko board. Otherwise, where you're like, okay, on the first stage, you're just trying to, there'll be enemy. There's basically like a little like screen on the top where your little goblin is at the top, and then you have to clear these waves of enemies that inch closer and closer to you each turn. And basically you just get all different types of orbs. Like you start out with just like your basic like stones that have a different kind of weight to them.
Nice.
That bounce off the pegs. Every peg you hit does a certain amount of damage. And then there's like critical hit pegs around the board that do extra hits. And then there's refresh pegs around the board that when you hit them, it refreshes the whole board. Resets all new pegs and like moves where the critical hits are at. But then what's really cool is you get all different types of orbs. So you get like fireball orbs, or you get like magnetic relics that like kind of pull your so you have relics are more like the buffs that you pick up along the way.
Right.
But that it almost got a little bit overpowered, where I'm like, I wonder if they're going to tweak some of this before the game comes out, because like I had this like poltergeist orb that would like, if it was bouncing upwards, it would go through the pegs, but also destroy them. But then like that combined with the magnet, it just kept like pulling my orb upwards, and then I'd hit one of like the refresh pegs and it would refresh everything. But like some of these, I would end up like hitting 1,000,000 pegs and doing like 5,000 damage. But like some of these bosses, like you got to do like 8,000 damage. So like it gets pretty nuts.
Yeah.
And there's just like, I don't know, it's just like a really well designed. I don't know. It seems like there's so many of these games that are just kind of like taking the roguelike structure or formula and just kind of going, okay, let's take this genre or this style of game or this gameplay and like slap this on top of it or wrap it up in this like format or whatever. But this is one of the times that it's like it still needs a little polishing, a little tweaking around the edges. And I know it comes out like really soon. So I don't know if this is like an earlier demo build that was up, or maybe this is just the way it's going to be. Cause like the map seemed like way less detailed than a lot of the other stuff in the game, like when you're in like the battle screens or whatever. So it's just like, I wonder, it just seemed like a missed opportunity, because I really do think this game has the potential to like I made it all. I thought it was just going to be like a demo of like the first zone, but I ended up making it to like the third world, going on like a pretty deep run and like get all the different relics and buffs you get and like decisions. Like, again, there's a lot of those, like when you get to like a question mark, it's like, okay, do you want to like trade 5 health and sacrifice one of your orbs, or do you want to trade 20 health and get rid of all your orbs, but it gives you this one mega powerful orb? Or, they're just like a few strategic decisions to make along the way that like, certain orbs will let you attack it, like, because the enemies will kind of like be in like a line. It's almost like a side scrolling fashion. So like kind of like Darkest Dungeon. So like you can't like hit enemies that are behind other enemies.
Okay.
Unless you have a certain orb that says, oh, you can target any enemy with this, or this particular, like that poltergeist would be like, it would hit every enemy on the screen.
Right.
So it, just go like kind of through everybody and hit them all in a line. So I don't know. It's just like a really cute, really fun, I probably wouldn't have bought like a new version of Peggle if they came out with like Peggle 5 or whatever version they're on now. I'd like, okay, I've been there, done that, whatever. But the fact that it's kind of wrapped up with a strategic layer around it.
No, that's sweet. And like, best of my knowledge, there hasn't been a new Peggle since like
in a long time.
XBLA days. I mean, I haven't been paying close attention, but it seems that way. And like, yeah, so it's like, again, indies are filling in the gaps, just like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And combining it in a new, interesting way to give us what we want. And I very much appreciate it, because that's right up my alley too.
It's awesome. Yeah. And it's like, I'm having a hard time, like, because I'm like, I don't want to say anything too, like, it does need a little bit of balancing. I feel that I don't know if it'll just be like once it's out of the demo phase or once it's out, like, again, that magnet thing felt like just a little overpowered, or just like the little polishing things here and there. But on the core, like, the experience is awesome. Like, I'm really having it. Was another one where I was like, I was streaming for a little bit, and at one point, like, I was like, I think I even said, like, at one point, I was like, I think I'm gonna wrap up there. I beat like the second world boss or whatever, and I was like, oh, okay, I can probably just save my run and pick up here. And I was like in the middle of saying, like, I think I'm gonna stop here, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna keep going. I'm having a good time. And you can like level up the orbs and like like certain orbs you can only use one per run, and it kind of shuffles up your like ammo is all randomized. Like I don't know, it just adds like just enough strategy to a mostly random luck kind of base game.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's already fun to just play regular, whether it's Peggle or just like even a physical pachinko table. Like that's fun regardless. So like add another layer of strategy to that, and some cute and some really good music. I was gonna say some cute pixel art, but the music is fantastic. Like really was getting into the vibe. Like there's a couple, like sometimes when it's more like energetic boss battle style music, that's not always my bag, but like the more melodic stuff. Oh man, I was loving it.
Nice.
Even some light like Donkey Kong Country. I throw that around too much because those are like some of the best soundtracks around. But
they are
light. I guess it's safe to say probably a lot of these composers are inspired by David Wise. So.
Oh yeah. At this point, I'm sure of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But
that stuff's all time stuff.
Yeah. Definitely. So yeah, definitely recommend Peglin, and I could rattle off a few more games as well, but I'll save it for the cast because you and I have been talking as again, we're like, oh, we don't have much to really talk about today. And then here we go, an hour later.
You got me going on Sega Genesis. That's
all we need. Yeah. All we got to do is bring up the retro stuff. we don't have John to keep us on task here.
Right. Seriously.
But yeah, hopefully we'll get the whole crew back together. Maybe we'll even get DJ back in on the mix to dig into some Elden Ring. But we'll definitely be getting some more thoughts on Elden Ring from John and Randall at the very least. And we'll definitely be digging into some Kirby and the Forgotten Land. For some reason, Realm felt right, but I'm pretty sure it's Land.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've all been enjoying that so far and excited to dig into that one more deeply down the line. But yeah, I think we can probably wrap it up there. And until next week, you can find us on the internet, and we will catch you then. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Nice. I've had you frozen here for a while again.
Oh my God, I am frozen again.
It works.
Why did it happen?
It happened like a while ago too, but I was just like, it was during the Sega conversation.
That's all right.
Because I remember I was the whole time while you were talking about Alien Soldier.
Yeah.
I was thinking you were talking about Hagane.
Oh,
on Super Nintendo, which they're kind of similar games.
Yeah, Hagane is a cool game too.
And another also like super rare, expensive. Yeah. I think that's why I was just, and they're also kind of big honking sprites.
Hagane is definitely very similar to Ninja Warriors.
Oh yeah. That's another one.
Ninja Savior / Ninja Warriors.
I still have that sitting in my cart on Amazon, that Ninja Warriors like collection or whatever.
I really enjoyed my time with that Ninja Savior game.
And especially after the package that that same team put together with Wild Guns.
Oh
like, man, just if it has that same level of polish,
it does.
Like well worth it. Which also has me extra pumped about Pocky and Rocky. I don't know if it's the same people for that, but
I had to do it.
Yeah, it's in my. Because I just got one of my old guitars set up with I got like $150 Visa gift card for Christmas when I was back home.
Nice.
And I was thinking the guitar that I got set up and like took it in to get like fixed up and whatever. I was thinking that was gonna be the whole cost of that.
Yeah.
Roughly, I was like, it'll be 100, 150, whatever.
Yeah.
And it ended up only being like 70. So now I'm like, I got a little extra.
Oh yeah.
And it's a Visa gift card. I mean, I can't pay my rent with it. I guess I could buy groceries, but I'm like, I got to buy something fun with this Christmas money.
Yeah, so totally. And
I think I'd probably.
It's kind of a pain in the ass with those. Once you get into like an amount, you have to figure out exactly how much it is. So it's like easier to buy online stuff sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. Let me just plug this in, not jump through a hoop and I gotta get a manager to approve this
2 transactions.
Card. Yeah.
All that stuff.
So yeah, maybe I will add because Pocky and Rocky's sitting in the cart too. So
yes,
I might have to do because $30 ain't bad, man.
No, I mean the game could be terrible if it's not developed by some of the same people, but I had to take the chance.
And they've been doing a good job with because that's Natsume as well, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like their track record's strong. So it's even if it's not the same team, I got to think they want to keep that caliber up.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.